That's why it's so important for us to open up the tools, because there's no way we're coming up with all of this, and there's no way that like we're the only ones that are able to like build this whole world. Let's say Cooper taps my hat here. He can actually just navigate to 90cc market right off the tap screen right here, and I'll actually get a network points kickback from 90cc for referring his purchase. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I do not want my heart on my sleeve. I cannot let them see in too deep, cause I know they can use it against me. Only one I can trust is me. I got niggas I keep around me.
Episode 31 of Invest in Music with Ryan and Chris of IYK. Today we're here to talk about the IYK Platform and their new seed round led by A16Z. We talk about all the different ways that IYK chips are being used by artists around the world and much, much more. As a reminder, you can collect this episode on investinmusic.xyz. It's the best way to support our guests, so without further ado, let's get into our first ever double guest episode with Ryan and Chris of IYK. We are back. We got Ryan and Chris from IYK live on air. Our first double episode where we have two guests at once. How are we feeling today, guys?
Pretty great. Happy Tuesday.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. We got a lot to cover. You guys are fresh off the back of the announcement of the IYK platform. You just had a monster seed round that you announced, so I want to cover it all. Before we get into that, why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit more about IYK for someone who's never heard of it before?
Absolutely. So I'll go first, Chris, if I miss anything. But high level, we're building the toolkit and platform for any creator, be it a fashion brand, musician, artist, collectible toy maker, to be able to make digi-physical experiences. And so these are these secured Web3 connected experiences that come off of some kind of physical interaction, like owning a product, meeting someone, and being somewhere. In our position, we find ourselves working a lot with NFC chips, tokenizing things like hats and apparel, all the way down to memorializing people's attendance at concerts and such. So big suite of stuff, but it's all about digi-physical.
Nice. Yeah, on my end, I have been dishing out those IYK discs at every event that I throw. I'm always just walking up to people and getting them to scan my disc. And it's so funny because everyone tries to take a picture of it. They think that they're going to like scan a QR code. And I like grab their phone and I'm like, no, tap it. And then they tap it and I'm like, whoa, what is that? I don't know if you're going to add anything there, Chris, but I just wanted to share that quick anecdote there.
No, that's great. I think we definitely get a lot of that. And part of the issue is the NFC won't work if your camera's on. So a lot of times we're like, no, you got to close the camera app. So we appreciate you also using the disc at your events.
Yeah, and I'm definitely very bullish on digi-physical over the word phygital. I know that was probably like a whole design space for you guys. I'm curious to hear, is that where we're going? Digi-physical, is that how it's being called?
Yeah, that's what we use. I think, the phonetics of the word phygital, it's just kind of nasty, right? But it was kind of hard for us. Like, we did come up with or at least brainstorm internally, and phygital is actually pretty descriptive, which I feel like is why it's kind of stuck. But we can't mess with those phonetics, so we just go digi-physical.
Yeah, I think we had a good list going on. Like fused product, like infused product, and like a lot of these like different types of words, but ultimately digi-physical is pretty clear. People were like throwing it around here and there, and like digital physical, like it's also like just more to the point, so we took it. Not
Totally.
taking it, but I mean we use it.
I mean, I like it as a term, and I feel like it's been amazing just watching your guys' growth the past couple of years. I think the first time that we met was actually through a mutual friend, Verite, who you guys work with very closely. I went to one of her shows in LA, and she had this like memory book solution where you could go up and tap the wall and leave a comment and whatnot. And through that, I got to meet you guys. And what I found so impressive about your journey is that you're obviously a very unique company in the sense that you're playing around with crypto native ideas in the terms of people claiming items and NFTs for the goods that they're scanning. But you're also coming from like a very different background than I think a lot of traditional crypto founders. It feels like you guys have been able to really marry both of those worlds super well. So I guess turning that into a question, I'd love to hear about what was your guys' origin story? How did you meet one another? And then what was it that actually brought this idea of IYK to life?
Yeah, so I'll go first. I come from mainly an engineering background. Just started off going to computer science at the University of Waterloo, went for 6 months, and then COVID hit, so all my classes moved online, which was pretty boring. And so I ended up doing a lot of like jumbled freelancing, doing different internships, and then ended up like kind of deep diving into Web3 development, going to ETH Global Hackathons and so on, and made a lot of good friends that way. And one of those friends actually introduced me to Chris over Discord. And I'll let Chris tell his side of the story, but high level, Chris was interested in this project that my friend was working on, and then he was just like, yo, you guys should meet each other. And so that's how it all started.
Yeah, so before IYK, I was actually a software engineer at Major League Baseball for a little over 6 years. I started my career in finance, actually. I did like 3 years as an analyst. Didn't really love it, so like taught myself how to code. I always felt like I wanted to do something entrepreneurially in the tech space, and that's why I felt like I needed to know how to code. So yeah, at the time, like it was probably, I've been programming for 8 or 9 years. I was kind of searching for something to work on, and you know, during COVID, you have more time on your hands, and then obviously like early 2021 Top Shot was popping off. People were on Clubhouse. Like it was a crazy time. And I remember March 1st, 2021, I downloaded Discord and just started going into different servers trying to like learn as much as I could. And yeah, one of those servers was ETH Global. There are a bunch of teams like sharing what they were hacking on. This one project really caught my eye. NFT puzzle thing. So shout out Hardik, Sneh, and Dinesh. And yeah, eventually like Hardik connected me with Ryan. And a lot of the origin story was we built this because we wanted kind of cooler consumer experiences for ourselves, where like we were super into NFTs. We saw brands show up like Dolce & Gabbana, and we saw that as like validation of like, wait, we're not just in this weird corner of the internet, like Dolce & Gabbana is here. And so when they dropped this sneaker, it was a collab with PJ Tucker. It was like an $800 sneaker. They said it came with a token, but the way that they gave you the token was you would get a code on your receipt that you would then submit in a form where they airdropped it to you. So we were like, that's not the best implementation, because you can then just sell the token on OpenSea and keep the physical, or you can like sell the physical and keep the token. So yeah, so like that was the problem. I remember walking home from Whole Foods in Williamsburg. Ryan like calls me on Discord and he's like, yo, I got the idea. And then that's when I'll let him talk through like the pullable NFT concept. And that was kind of like the genesis of IYK.
I think one piece I'll add to this whole thing is like, I ended up calling Chris, describing to him like this product idea. And part of it actually stemmed from like this experience that I had on Ticketmaster, where that was exactly around the time when John Mayer was selling tickets for the Sob Rock tour. I'm out here fighting in a queue against like these bots, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I've been to so many of these shows. I got like the watch, the SIG guitar, I've got all the merch, and like I'm still here like buying official platinum tickets and getting shafted by Ticketmaster. And I'm like, if only there's a way that like they could identify me, right? And the thing is like, I'm like, what do people, oh, it's like merch. Oh, like what if like I could show that I had the merch somehow? And then like that's kind of where this all came from. And the first thing that we came up with is this thing called the pullable NFT, where you having physical possession of, in this case, let's say a shirt, will allow you to actually pull the related NFT into your own wallet. And having physical possession is all you need. And so let's say I've got this shirt, I could scan it with my phone and then pull that NFT into my wallet. Let's say it's token ID 7. If I ship this shirt to Chris, he could then take his phone, tap it, verify the authenticity, but also pull that same NFT out of my wallet and into his, because he's now the new physical possessor, the guy with the merch, right? And so you could always digitally keep track of who actually owns your physical stuff. And then I was describing this to him, but like to me, it also didn't still fully click yet. Where he actually had to like call me back a few days later, being like, "Wait, that was like actually a crazy idea," and like he actually convinced me it was like really important. So yeah, that's like the more of the origin story there.
So like the interesting thing with the model is we're actually physical first, right? Mm-hmm. Like normal NFTs, the owner had the right to transfer it, right? In this case, you don't have the right. The shirt or the bag or the sneaker has the right. And so the token becomes a proxy for physical possession, which, you know, authenticity was a part of the story, but early on we were like really keen on how this could power next generation loyalty programs where you could have exclusive SKUs or colorways based on what you have in your closet. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was kind of like the genesis. And the funny thing is, like, the first kind of projects we did was more on the event side. Because I remember we were reaching out to a bunch of, like, NFT communities, trying to convince them to chip their merch. And that was kind of like a slower sales process. And, yeah, I went on a walk with Verite in McCarran Park. And one of the conversations was she's going on tour that fall. And she mentioned never like having the data on who attends her shows. And so I think part of this was, Ryan, you built a project called Crypto Sign, where in my head, like that was lingering, where I was like, oh, you know, I think we could actually help here. And so Verite and I were like chatting about like this concept of allowing people to leave a message for them, and that was the value prop. As a fan, you can kind of connect with the artist, and in return the artist actually collects fan attendance information direct. And so that's when Guestbook was created, and a few weeks later, like, we deployed it.
It's amazing. And I guess I'm curious to hear, what is the origin story between you and Kelsey that allowed there to be that conversation of like, let's build a solution for her on tour?
Yeah, so I actually knew her through a mutual friend. So that's how the intro happened.
Nice. And the reason I like to bring that up is because it was so obvious to me as soon as I saw that integration that like IYK enabled merchandise was going to be such a big thing in the future. You know, for context, I'm a really big fan of an artist named Millennium, and one of the most powerful things that he has is these concepts of jerseys, where like fans go and they buy jerseys for $130. They have like a custom design on it, etc. But you never really know how much are circulating in supply. You don't really know who owns it. And just throughout my time in live music, I used to collect hat pins, and I've seen all these different types of artist merchandise. It became very clear to me that there's a way to better index your collection. You know, to Ryan's point about being a really big fan of John Mayer and having to fight the bots, it's like, it's not really about the fact that it's a chip inside of a shirt. Like, that's kind of the thing that makes it happen. It's kind of about that social experience that is created around it. And I really want to zoom in here because I think a lot of the criticism I hear about IYK is like, oh, it's just a chip. Like, anyone can make a chip. Where is there any defensibility or value in this? And I know that you guys just recently launched the IYK platform. And so I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit more about, first of all, what the IYK platform is, and then how creators should be thinking about using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I like zoom all the way in on like what's coming up, the high level picture is that for the last 2 years we've been operating. To work with us, you had to like email me or email Chris or email someone on the team, right? And we would work together hand in hand with you, whether it's an event thing, a fashion thing, a music thing, a toys thing, an art thing, like to design something for your audience and deploy it with you. And while this was like great learnings, it did mean that like we could only work with so many people, and you know, it like we were kind of always the bottleneck here. And so platform now comes out with two things. One is this self-serve dashboard that allows you to administer this list of ready-to-use experiences that we've built over the last couple of years. And so things like connecting a token to your product, distributing exclusive content, giving a ticket access code, distributing POAPs, and a bunch of these other modules, we call them, those will all be able to be configured just with a couple clicks. And you sign in with an email, buy some chips, set them up. In less than 10 minutes, you should be able to do all of this. The other side of platform is the suite of APIs. And so if you've ever used like the ENS printed cards that started getting handed out at DevCon, or the token proof NFC tag integration, or play with the ArtBlocks Marfamesh project, like those are all leveraging the IYK API where people are building their own experiences on top. And I can name more examples like Gmoney's internet game or FirstMate's marketplace integration, but ultimately like it's giving people as much flexibility as they really need to use as much or as little of IYK as they want. So those are the two big things. And our mission really is to empower as many people as possible to start experimenting in digi-physical. Like, we don't want to lock you into a certain chip. We don't want to lock you into a certain like auth implementation or a certain type of product, or even like our screens. Like, you should be able to like have the flexibility to do what you want. And the last thing I'll say here is like the way I think about it is we're really successful if we can bring you from like 0 to 70, 0 to 80 of everything you want in your kind of fan experience, and you add your own touch, that 20% on top. And so if we can get you from 0 to 80, like that's like mission successful for us. And you as a creator do what you do best, which is creating that special fan experience.
Yep. I'd say part of the strategy is how flexible our system is, where there are actually like hundreds, if not millions of ideas, right, around what you could do off the tap screen. Like you've reached out about, hey, I'm throwing this event, maybe I have a chip in my jacket, and it lets you like mint a song that you can, a version of that song that you could only get that night, right? So there's so many ideas, and the way we've kind of built the system is basically allow people to customize it. So right now, we're the primary people who customize it through first-party modules that we publish. But very soon, like, this plan is to open it up to third-party developers, right? And so the comment about it's just a chip, yeah, it's kind of an entry point, but the canvas is like a mobile web app that's only can originate from being in a specific place. And what you do with that is there's like so many ideas. And yeah, so that's part of the strategy. I can also speak to like how it does kind of change merch, where imagine, you know, if you had an old Rolling Stone shirt that's hanging on a vintage store like rack, right? Imagine if I had a chip and you knew like which shows that shirt has been at. Like if they met some of the artists and there were the autographs that were inscribed into the shirt itself, right? So now already a really cool thing of like, this is a dope vintage shirt. It gets so much more context on like its journey, and that might actually elevate the piece even more. So it's little things like that where we're just bringing another dimension to, you know, something that was previously just static.
I love that. And I think that there's so many layers there. I want to quickly just highlight that you guys have done such a good job of just like bringing crypto culture forward in a way that doesn't feel too overwhelming. I think one of the biggest unlocks for me and just like why I got so excited about IYK is you had this project with Verite where she was going to traditional venues in LA, like the Roxy here in LA. She had a chip that you could go and tap that was reaching like regular fans. They had no clue what was going on with crypto. They have never claimed an NFT before. But then on the flip side, I went to DevCon in Bogota, and you guys were all over the place. Like you had this ENS integration, and everyone was going around and using their card to scan and collect these different ENS names that was part of like a wider prize. And I think you guys did such a great job of balancing a product that was built specifically for like mainstream fans with like a product that actually resonated with crypto native users. And I'd love for you just to kind of talk more about like, what is your philosophy when you think about building for those different audiences? Because I think that a lot of people get kind of caught in the middle, and I'm kind of curious to hear how you guys think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, and this is something we had to kind of realize over time, when we were building this, like in the earliest moments, we were pretty into the whole NFT thing, pretty into crypto. And we're like, oh, NFT physical, oh, let's go. Like, and then over time we realized like, oh, wait, like where are people actually interacting with this stuff? Like buying merch is already a familiar behavior. checking into an event is a familiar behavior. Like going to a show and getting a souvenir is a familiar behavior. Like we realized that like the places people were interacting with us, those are already like familiar things. Like I wasn't asking you to go purchase a picture. I wasn't asking you to go like connect a wallet. It's like come and leave a message for your favorite artist, right? Or, hey, can you verify and activate your merch? And it's just like another dimension versus something entirely new. And I think that was a total blessing for us because it meant that our onboarding was much smoother than, say, connecting a wallet, buying ETH, needing to make a transaction and doing all of these things. And even today, when we think about like building new modules and stuff, like we're always thinking about how quickly can we deliver value to whoever that customer is, right? And so Verite is, again, another great example of this where this is pretty lucky. I actually have the crew neck right here.
Nice.
Tapping her chip at the time, like, you don't need to connect a wallet. You actually don't even need to put in your email or phone number or anything. Like, tapping it instantly gave you this like full screen takeover that was like a preview of her new single or a tour rehearsal or a demo tape, or every week she was putting something new, right? And it was just boom, tap, get value, OMG, nice. Like after you feel like good and you feel like you got like, what you came for, you could then, oh wait, what's like, let me claim this NFT. Oh, let me like check out the SMS thing. Oh, I can also join this thing, which is like her, she was doing like this thing with Highlight at the time. But like you kind of grab the user after giving them what they came for, and that's just something we've just kept in mind ever since, because it really is all about onboarding, and making sure that we can deliver value quickly means that more people follow through and get to the real benefits, which is being able to authenticate your merch, show the artist that you have it, join these like fan communities and so on.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll say, like everything Ryan said, plus I think our process, we always work back from, do we think this is a cool idea? If it's not, then we won't build it. Where instead of maybe building a product and then trying to find a market for it, we have these set of primitives, like non-shareable links off a chip where you're landing on a page. We know you have some item or you're at some event. So we have these like Lego blocks, and then when we're thinking about activations, it's always like, do we think that's cool? Maybe there's something better. What if we did this? What if we did? And like we actually we'll hash ideas for like a week or two and get to like version 50 on something, and it's because like we're still thinking about it as consumers, and like if we were participating, what would we think is cool? And so, at times it did slow us down 100%, but I feel like people actually felt all of the thought that went into different things, and it was ultimately like appreciated.
100%. And I feel like a continuation of that was after the DebCon event where you had this ENS game, Art Basel in Miami. It was kind of like NFTs were starting to cool off, and you guys did this crazy activation with G Money and 9DCC where you were literally printing physical t-shirts that had an IYK chip embedded in them inside the shirt itself. Can you talk a little bit more about that kind of experience and just walk me through, cool idea and how that kind of manifested in the form of this literal shirt printing experience that happened in Miami?
Yeah, so I can start it off real quick. So one thing I think we have to also acknowledge is we never did, like most of our activations were in partnership with amazing people. Like Verite had so much deep thought into Guestbook and how it should work. G Money is like so great at using Web3 tools to build his audience. The ENS team thought like a lot about the ENS card. So I want to be clear, like it's not just us in isolation. Like we play a role on like a broader team. But the iteration 2 idea, that's a great example. I think G was probably cooking on that for months with Snowfro. So we can share like kind of their child maybe here. So the idea was you purchase an NFT in like this immersive retail experience that was a pop-up shop during Art Basel. you pay with the credit card, and the mint was generative based on like the actual time the transaction sent. So when you purchase the token, you have to wait for the transaction to mine. So there's this like element of suspense, and they had these TV monitors up where you didn't know what you were gonna pull. And actually I got this poster, shout out from our investor Derek, we were just in Marfest, like this kind of shows you the different traits with Chromie Squiggle. So people were like hoping for a hyper or whatever, right? And once you pulled your token, they would actually print that exact NFT on a shirt that would then go to our station where we would link that NFT to the physical shirt. It got packaged, and then you got your item. And so the crazy thing about all of that to us was how it kind of changes the feeling around retail. Where right now, it doesn't matter if you go to the most expensive store. Like you can pull up to Hermes, right? Drop 10K, 15K. You're still walking out with the exact same thing that the next person could have, right? In this case, depending on what time you showed up, you're walking out with either like a super, like it's just totally different, right? And you had to have been in that pop-up shop in order to get it. So it was just one of like the coolest activations that we were a part of.
Anything you want to add there, Ron?
I mean, not much. I mean, that was an insane thing. Not only like we got like the lucky chance like go through it as consumers, like first, right? So I think I was token 96, Chris was token 97.
Yeah.
I think the people who minted before us were like Snowfro, the 90cc team, G, right? And it just felt like hyper magical. This idea of like generative retail, generative fashion, like it was like the first time I experienced that, and I like thought it was a game changer. And then like knowing that like operationally it was also like this really like never before done thing going on in the background where like there's a digital thing that gets put on a physical thing, but then the physical thing is linked back to the digital thing, it gets all packaged up and delivered to like the right person in that room. It was just like this crazy like train of parts that ended up, and we can take no credit for this, like Kevin, Suba, G, Brandon on the 90cc team like went ham on making everything go amazing. And yeah, that isn't like one of my favorite collaborations we've ever done.
100%. And let's layer onto that where IYK makes this even more exciting, which was the scavenger hunt that happened with it, where there basically became this giant mobile street team of people just mass scanning everyone's shirts because there was basically a competition where whoever scanned the most shirts got a free shirt. And granted, this was like a high-end like luxury shirt that has art blocks in it, etc. So it's a very sought-after item. You would walk around Art Basel and everyone would just be running up to scan your shirt, just random people you've never met before, some of which were very friendly, like, oh, let's have a conversation. Others of which were just like mobbing you to scan your shirt and had no interest in even getting to know who you were in the first place. And I just feel like that experience like unlocks so many possibilities in my mind of like these chips in these shirts kind of make everyone like a mobile street team. Like everyone can now become like a active vendor for your product. Like someone can be wearing your shirt and then sell your shirts to other people in real time. They can get a commission from it. Like to your point earlier about there being like a million different ideas, I feel like the really exciting part about IYK is the more that I see these experiments come to life, the more you start to see these windows into how these tools can become super powerful for future users to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a new maybe model for what it means to be an influencer, right? Where like today, you know, there are a lot of influencers on Instagram that push product and it's purely digital. In this case, it's like if you're minting a lot of items off your shirt, like A, you're probably wearing it, right? Mm-hmm. And B, you know, you have to be doing something right if people want to like come up to you and like mint. So
you're a physical influencer.
You're a physical influencer. And we don't know it's a new consumer behavior. Like we don't even know what the etiquette is. Like you were saying, like, is it rude to not ask or can you just tap? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely interesting to see how like this new behavior is emerging. Because imagine if it's not just minting a token, but if there was like a special remix on your song and like, yo, you were at that show where this happened and let me listen. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's insane. Like that's why it's so important for us to open up the tools, because there's no way we're coming up with all of this, and there's no way that like we're the only ones that are able to like build this whole world, right? Like that commission that you were talking about, like huge shout out to the guys at 90cc Market, huge shout out to the First Mate guys. Like if you don't know, like you can tap any 90cc product, pull it up. Let's say Cooper taps my hat here. He can actually just navigate to 90cc Market right off the tap screen right here, and I'll actually get a network points kickback from 90cc for referring his purchase. Like it's crazy. Like now I can go out and chill. And
like you're incentivized.
Exactly. Now I'm incentivized. I'm a proud 90cc shiller. And so, you know, I don't know. There's just going to be more and more and more, and we're just super excited.
And I think the social layer there is super important, because one of the other integrations that I'm really stoked on is this, you know, like physical business card that's been floating around. It's kind of like more on the low key end of the IYK product line, but it's like, you know, Patricio from POOP is like this incredibly well-known guy who goes to all these crypto conferences, and he started doing this thing where he would update his POOP relative to where you saw him at. So it's like, if I saw you in New York, if I saw you in Bogota, if I saw you in October, you know what I mean? There started to be this like game of like recurringly seeing people over time. And I feel like that validation of being able to cement that like we saw each other in all these different places around the world, it became this kind of like very common trend for people who are actively going to these crypto conferences to be like, I want to have my own like item that's updating in real time relative to the conferences I'm going to, because it kind of allows us to both like celebrate the fact that not only do we know each other, but we're actually like spending time with each other IRL in like multiple occasions.
Yeah, for sure. It's a new data primitive on like, I saw you at South by, or I saw you at Art Basel. We can give a free idea away that we love. Okay, so imagine if your message list pruned itself, where like if I didn't meet up with you for the last year in person, based off of like collecting a token or something, that your chat, like the chat just gets pruned. And so like there's incentive, like, yo, if I want to like stay up with people, like the friends you care about, like go meet up with them, like get coffee, go out. Like it's just a concept, right? Of, all right, we started with emitting POAPs off shirts. Then we learned, whoa, that kind of reflects like an IRL social interaction. And that's like now a data point where one of the things IYK provides is we help bring like this semantic meaning to tokens, where instead of it just being NFT, it's actually, I was at that show, or I met Cooper at South by, right? And so now you can use this data. Like we want to see people building apps like this based off of these like real world experiences.
100%. And I want to kind of take the continuation of this journey, because we talked about, you know, Verite with the guest book. We talked about DevCon with ENS, 90cc at Art Basel. I know you guys recently went through the A16Z startup school, and I think it plays really well into one of your recent announcements. Can you talk me through the A16Z startup school experience? And then more specifically, being very honest, I feel like you guys were already pretty far along as a company by the time that you decided to join that program. Like, what was enticing to you about coming and joining that class of startups, and what did you guys get out of that program?
Yeah, so I can go first, and then Chris, yeah, feel free to add. I think for us, the best part about that program really was, I mean, they did a tremendous job at like picking a really diverse set of like really cool founders. And so like meeting up with all the founders, also networking with like all the A16Z partners, like I feel like just like that mix of people was just like really well picked. And so every single time we went to a happy hour, we'd go to one of those sessions, like we'd always learn something new just from like the people who were there. And for me, that was the best part. For people, for people who weren't familiar, Crypto Startup School was this incubator type thing that ran in person in LA from March to May, run by A16Z, and there were, I think, 26 companies that came in, got together to go through this 3-month program.
Yeah, I think we were definitely further along. It wasn't like an easy decision for us because we had actually just raised our seed round, and we were further along than I think the program was intended for. So us being in LA 2 days out of the week while we were trying to run our team, like, it was definitely a big commitment, but ultimately the decision process was like, you know, being able to be alongside, like Ryan said, incredible founders who are going through like the similar struggle of trying to like create something from nothing, and then having like the support of Andreessen. Like, they made a lot of operating partners available, so there are office hours and all of these amazing speakers coming in. So we felt like it was definitely worth it, and yeah, I think looking back, it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, and I feel like for people that have kept up on Twitter, I saw that last week you guys announced, what was it, a $16.8 million fundraise led by A16Z. So all things considered, it seemed like that was definitely the right call to go through that program because it netted out in a very, probably the best, outcome possible as a result of going through like that incubator.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it worked out. I think for us, it's a little, I don't know how to think about all of that. It's like we've been just grinding since mid 2021, and it's just like another part of the journey where, every day we just like log on to Discord and like we're chatting about stuff we want to build. And yeah, I think we just kind of live day by day.
Do you feel like you've changed your thoughts on how you're operating as a company, as a business, by virtue of either the amount of capital that you've raised or by virtue of sort of the partners that you're working with? And to maybe ask that a different way, like when you were building IYK for, Verite and some of those early conversations we had, were you building the company in a different way from how you're thinking about building it today?
Okay, Ryan can keep me honest. So my response here is, we haven't really shifted our approach where the extra capital, it really just gives us flexibility where the things we see like taking off, one of our internal commentaries is a lot about finding closed loops where platform, it gives us a chance to test like a loop of someone just finding us, buying chips, configuring it. Maybe it boosts their sales. And so they come back, reorder chips, and do it again, right? So, with Guestbook, it's like you deploy it at one show, you actually collect 50 email addresses, and so you want to deploy it at the next show. So we've always been searching for these loops, and all the capital does is when we identify these loops, we will like supercharge it. But until then, our process of building products and like how we filter out ideas, like all that, in my opinion, has kind of stayed the same.
Yeah, we really want to give like artists a new tool that's really like sustainable, that fits right into the way they want to design their fan experience. Like, buy this season's vinyl or this era's vinyl, and it's a pass to all of this like behind the scenes stuff. And then the next era comes along, and now there's like this crew neck, it's the new season pass, right? And then like here's all the things you can do with it, and just having IYK as a core part of your creator toolkit, that's the goal. And like we understand that the things that artist 1 would want versus artist 2 versus artist 3 versus brand 1 versus brand 2 versus brand 3, it's all going to be different. And how can we like create the best possible platform where they can do what they want to do? Like, that's the goal. And yeah, we're a big part of that right now is just like getting platform out, staying nimble, making sure that we can still pull off crazy things like iteration 02. And part of the funding is flexibility to be like, yeah, when we need to do something crazy, we can do it, right? And so it's really just giving us that option. But we want to stay close, really close to the creators who are using our platform and just being nimble on that front.
Well said. And for artists or managers or anyone in the music industry that's listening to it, if I want to get started with IYK Platform today, walk me through that process. Let's say that I'm, historically been selling some merch. Now I maybe want to add a chip into it. Let's say that I want to do something cool at my live shows. Like, what's the process that someone should think about with getting started with IYK?
Yeah. So with the platform, which right now it's kind of in this invite only period as we kind of figure out like the optimal user experiences, but the flow is you log in, you have your own team, and you can order chips. So let's say you're dropping 100 hoodies, you'd order 100 chips. Just by filling out a few forms, clicking a few buttons, like you can fully set up like a digital twin experience for your product. And so you then take it, whoever's making your merch, it gets installed. Maybe you create like a cool patch or whatever. But after you go through that configuration step, you can actually re-engage with those items also through platform. And so we're kind of still playing around with the terminology, but one term we're using is like a campaign, where you might schedule content, for 3 hours or 5 days. So in the case of a fashion company, if you have like the summer collection, maybe you're previewing like the winter looks to those owners, right? And so that is just going through platform, uploading as if you were publishing it to Instagram, but in this case you're publishing it to people who have your items.
Yeah, and just adding to that, like let's say you want to throw out a demo tape or like a poll, hey, should I do this, or like vote on the set list, like I don't know. Your fans can also be notified if you add either like kind of the email onboarding module or the SMS module, and you'll actually be able to not only reach them directly through platform with those kind of integrated notifications, but also take that audience and bring it to whatever tools you're already using, be it MailChimp or community.com or so on and so forth. And so the centralizing theme is like creator flexibility, artist flexibility. And so we're really excited to not only like release platform to people, but also continue taking in feedback on like what's the best way to do all of these things.
Shout out to the first time that I ordered some chips. You guys just sent me a plastic bag full of like 100 of them. And it looked like I just got a bunch of drugs. So funny. It was just like the most like default Ziploc bag ever. I was like, all right, we're early. This is how you know we're early. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think one thing that I've really appreciated about your guys' philosophy too is I know that when people hear about, verifying items, they typically go to like luxury goods. They typically think about like, okay, how can I validate a Louis Vuitton handbag, or how can I validate a really high-end t-shirt? I feel like one thing that you guys have been really seeking to unlock is like allowing these experiences to be created for all creators. Someone who's selling a t-shirt for $10, $20. And I'd love just to hear a little bit more about like the way you guys have thought about targeting the high-end luxury market versus the way you think about building for creators more broadly, and how that's kind of informed the product decisions.
Yeah. So the truth is we did think a lot about the luxury use case at the beginning. But I think we kind of quickly realized that the sales cycle was going to be really long, and that there's actually a lot of other opportunities where we can pilot concepts a lot quicker. And ultimately, the realization is like, if you're an Hermes or a Louis Vuitton, like the reality is they have years of brand equity that they built up. Like they can be the last people that enter the space, and people will be hyped if Hermes drops NFTs, right? So like in our case, the power was, in one category of creator, like with musicians, they're really like these amazing cultural figures where merch is a part of their revenue strategy just by dropping differentiated content on the apparel from like if you're a Taylor Swift fan or a Drake fan or whatever, like it's just a different feeling where we could create these kind of immersive consumer experiences that actually I'm not sure if like a luxury brand can replicate, right? Because there's a different feeling for, you know, people's favorite artists and like connecting over their music, right? So we saw that it was going to be a little slow. This felt like a really awesome opportunity to dabble in like and push the boundaries of the kind of experiences we could create. And then ultimately we're hoping we can offer it as like, hey, here's the menu, like pick which concepts you like and we can port it over.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is like it does feel a lot different. And when we started like thinking outside of luxury, we at least I personally felt this thing where like it's so much more fun to not be thinking like so like adversarially all the time, where it's like, is my thing real? Like check, and it's like, did I just get scammed on this thing? It's like, you want to be kind of switch it to be like more empowering, right? It's be like, oh, like, bro, I'm self-identifying as a super fan. I want to make it known, right? I want you to be able to take a snapshot and I'm in it. And it's so clear that I've been a fan for 7 years with all of these different things. And that brings me to a different level of experience where I could do this. Like on those Atlantic Records shirts, like you got early access to those anniversary vinyls. Like dope, right? Like dope. Like it's like just way more fun to be thinking about it in that way. And like at the end of the day, right, like authenticity, having confidence in the thing that you own really is like table stakes for all of these things, right? You don't want people accessing like the POAP from a fake product. You don't want people like being able to get content when they haven't gone through like the quests, right? And so like for us, we still really pay attention to like how secure is it? What are the different attack vectors? Like, do people feel confident when they tap an IYK product and do this? And all of that is still very important to us. But we're just kind of twisting it to be like, hey, but like you as the consumer should also have like feel really, really like rewarded when you go through all of these things.
Yeah, I'm just like zooming out to, you know, whatever year it's going to be when basically every electronic artist is just using IYK in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's like, you know, tapping the disc to get into the show and get a POAP, whether it's like just scanning the shirts. Like it was just so obvious to me from such an early stage that like artists have so much to gain from like using this solution. And I guess turning this into a little bit more of like a fun piece of the episode as we come to the close here, I just want to highlight that you guys are very different ages as co-founders together, and it's something that I found very like amusing when I first learned about it, that you guys are basically like 10 years older or younger than one another. I'd love to just ask like a very like high level question of like, what are some of your favorite experiences having worked together, given that you come from like very different age groups?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Okay, so when I met Ryan, he was 19 years old, which that's pretty insane. Like Yeah, I'll let him speak to. He dropped out of school to pursue IYK, so definitely appreciate him. Like, that's a pretty big life decision to make, right? As far as our age difference, it's hilarious because I think when we're on like sales calls and we're like pitching either investors or other companies, like I think we average where like I help pull him up and he helps pull me down. So maybe on like most of our sales calls, like people don't really notice as much, but it's definitely a funny thing for sure.
Yeah, I think the thing is I at least when I first met Chris, like let me try to think. First of all, it's really hard to notice how old someone is behind like a cartoon Discord profile picture, right? And like that's like how we worked like the first 5 months. Yeah. And so it's like he's got his Lil now and I've got my Savage profile. We're just like texting in Discord. It's impossible to tell, right? And it's like even if you're on a call with someone, it's like impossible to tell. And even when I first met this guy in person, I thought I was like 25. And so it's just like it just doesn't feel like you say like, oh, what are the funniest moments? I think like it just doesn't really feel all that different. Like, okay, he's 12 years older, but like, so what? I think like the only times it's been funny is like Chris will pull out some reference or like, and then I'll be like, I've got no idea what you just said. And then,
like movie references.
Yeah. That's where it really shows. But otherwise, it's pretty chill.
What was it like dropping out of school for you, Ryan? Like, was that a pretty easy decision for you to make? Was it a very hard decision to make? Like, were you getting influence from your parents at all? Or what did that kind of decision tree look like for you?
That's a really good question. The lucky thing is that, like, my parents didn't really have a strong opinion on the whole thing, where they've mostly just been like, do what you want. For me, I mean, it was a pretty miserable time to be a student. I went to the University of Waterloo. You didn't even have Zoom classes. You just had like lectures that were recorded pre-COVID to watch. And it was just like a hard experience, right? I'm at home. I live in a suburb north of Toronto, and like hard to get a lot of connection. All I can do is just be online, work on stuff, work on more stuff, like try to slip away and make GPT-3 do my homework and then do more stuff, right? Like it's very... I don't know. It's just like I wasn't getting a lot from school, and like I'd already been like working, like doing like jumbled freelancing and stuff. And so, for me, I don't think it was as hard of a decision as it should have been. Where thinking back on it, like it was a little too easy. But here we are. You know, no regrets.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very natural thing. And I guess I would turn the same question over to you, Chris. Like when you thought about leaving your job at the MLB, was that a very conscious decision of like, I want to start something new? Were you just kind of over that whole world, or what was kind of your decision tree for going out and just exploring this whole like entrepreneurial range?
Yeah, I was definitely over having like a more standard like job. Definitely. I'd say I actually let myself get a little complacent, where the whole reason why I taught myself how to code and wanted to go down this path was to do something entrepreneurial. But I think I got too comfortable in like the day-to-day routines, and I kind of lost sight of that. So for me, COVID was this giant pause on life where everything just stopped, right? And it forced at least me to kind of reflect on like where I was at, like am I taking the right steps, all of that. And so yeah, like I said, the start of 2021 was this insane time for me, where I remember hopping in all these different Discord servers and just being like so energized by everything that was happening. Like one situation I remember was Rari Capital got hacked for like 10 million, and it was run by other like basically children were managing all of these funds, and it was like so amazing how like
full respect.
Full respect.
Like we were huge Rari fans.
Yeah,
Ryan was investing.
Shout out Jay, calling him a child.
Shout out Jay. My entire net worth was in Rari. No shame at all.
Yeah,
no shame.
Oh man.
So it was just in there, and like people were talking about like how should we like handle the hack, and there's like this town hall. It was just like so exciting that like how could you not leave and enter this world? Like the people who were showing up, it was so cool. So I felt like it was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah. I mean, it was the Wild West, where
really
like
was.
Starting a company was never the goal. It was just like being immersed in like the craziness. Like we were building these NFT sniping bots and these metadata indexers, and like this stranger with a mutant ape profile picture actually sent us like 10 ETH to go try to help him snipe some NFTs, and our bot like had a bug in it and it failed, and he's like, oh, can I get my ETH back? And like it was just this crazy, yes, and he got refunded, of course, but like crazy time, like
right,
craziness.
I think it's hard to explain to people like the level of trust that comes from just being on chain. You know, like I had so many experiences myself where it'd be like I'd be working with some dude in South Africa that I've never met before, and he like sends me his passport, you know what I mean? Or just like the highest level of like personal trust just because you guys happen to be on this thing. And yeah, especially like during those DeFi summer moments, I remember like it was very hard to describe, you know. And I think in a lot of ways, if we bring that back full circle to where we're at today, I feel like that's kind of the question that I've been asking is like, what are those exciting moments, those exciting chapters that get people stoked to be on chain? Because I think a lot of the amazing things that came out of the last cycle were spurred by just the excitement of being on Discord and the excitement about building NFT sniping bots and like wanting to join the Rari town hall because like, you know, all this money got hacked and stuff like that. And if you look at it from the surface, it's like there was all these crazy things happening that probably should not have been happening, but just the energy around like being involved with it was so contagious. But I think right now the biggest thing that we're lacking as like an ecosystem and as a space is like things are moving along and they're moving forward, but like what are those things that are making people like stoked to hop online, like stoked to sign into Telegram, stoked to sign into Discord? And frankly, I don't really think there's a lot of them right now. So that's kind of why I just like wanted to have you guys on, is I very much feel that way about you guys. And it's very different from like, you know, Rari fuse polls where it's like the most degenerate shit in the world. But I think in your own right, you know, you guys have really found a foundation for yourself to bring a lot of these product experiences to the world. And I'm just stoked to see what you guys have done because it's really been such an amazing journey so far.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, hopefully we help serve as a Trojan horse of sorts where like we can onboard people in a pretty accessible way, because like the thing we like to say all the time is we're not asking you to do anything new. Like you already buy clothes, you already go to shows. Like this is a completely opt-in experience. It's non-financial tokens. You can't even buy these things. The way you get it is you have to go to the show, right? So like, yeah, hopefully we can make it less scary than a fuse pool. And yeah, that's the hope. And we're going to have fun while we do it. So that's the other thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts you want to add there, Ryan?
No. The excitement will be back. I'm excited to participate in another fuse pool, whether it's a fuse pool or not. Like I think we will be back. Like, and I think IRL is going to be a huge part of it. I think moving more of our identity online, like IYK brings your physical possessions online, places you've been, maybe people you met. It joins this entire other section of you that's online, which is like part of your financial assets, your NFTs, like your membership passes, your ENS name, your profile picture. It joins this family of stuff that's online, and this online identity is going to be so powerful, and we are going to be so back when people finally start like accessing more and using this online identity more. It's going to be great. I'm extremely bullish.
That's a quote to remember. We are going to be so back. A future promise of being back, you know? So I guess that's a really good place to help wrap it up, guys. For people who want to stay up with both of your work and with IYK, what's the best place to follow you guys on social media?
So for me, it's Twitter, Ryan Ouyang _. RyanOuyang and then that's the best place.
Yeah, so you can follow IYK. It's IYK _app on Twitter, or X. And then my social is creeefs. So it's CREEEFS.
Just look for the little noun.
And if you're interested in IYK Platform, yes, exactly. But if you're interested in IYK Platform, please go to IYK.app. If you really can't wait and you have a brilliant idea that we must know immediately, please email contact@iyk.app and we will respond. I think that's it.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been an amazing journey so far, and I know we're going to look back on this episode in 5 years from now and be like, damn, these guys were talking about fuse pools way before it was cool. You know what I mean? So I'm very thankful for your time, and thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you guys again next week. Peace.
Cool. Thanks for having us. See ya.
Thank you.